So welcome to the city of winds. Baku has welcomed us all for the 17th round of the 2024 Formula One calendar, and it's Thursday, ever present, ever busy with the news. I'm joined by Alex Kalinauckas. Alex, today's top story, arguably McLaren's team orders, or is it?
Well, it's certainly today's top story. Is it team orders? That's what we'll get into. I mean, it really took over the day, I would say, right from the off. Andrea Stella giving an interview to the BBC where effectively, having said leaving Monza, the plan was to think about, right, is really now the time for team orders? The conclusion was, yes, it was. But it sort of explained it in a very McLaren under Andrea Stella way. He said, we're going to be showing bias towards Lando. But then got quite specific, said that Oscar Piastri had admitted to him, would he give up a victory? Piastri, according to Stella, saying it would be painful, but I would do it. Well, then we spoke to the McLaren drivers later on, and it's a very different case. So spoke to Norris first, playing amateur psychologist for a little while, as I like to. He was arms folded entire way through, not pleased. I don't know, maybe he's just because he's in title contention, he's just sick of doing media now because he always ends up in the press conferences. But yeah. I think he did say he was thankful for the decision, but explained it in more greater detail, which is basically that, and I think Norris, to be fair, is quite happy with this. If Piastri gets pole position, if he's winning a race and Norris is second, McLaren won't ask him to give up the win. That's sort of, it is team orders, but it isn't. It's basically trying to be half pregnant, which you can't be. So therefore, this is I don't understand this scenario. It's like we've gone, okay, yeah, we're doing this thing, but we're not actually doing it, which again is a recipe, it feels like to me, for what happened in Hungary, for what happened in Monza. Although specifically on that, I did say to Oscar, I said to him, look, if the exact circumstances were to be repeated, would you make the same move or would things be different? He said, things would be different. So I think we can read into the subtext of that effectively if they're 1-2 on the grid, no lap one attacking or no outrageous lap one attacking. I don't think Lando Norris does seem to have a bit of a problem with cold tyres at the start. We now know that's really what tripped McLaren up in Zandvoort when Max Verstappen got ahead. So I think if Piastri's second on the line, on the grid, Norris is on pole, and Piastri gets a better launch, he can't back out at turn one. And I think that's what Norris is getting at when he said, look, we're going to overcomplicate things on lap one. But I think if there's a pass that Piastri put in at Monza, that sort of thing, although he was completely fair in the manoeuvre, the fact that he came from so far back, they were so far ahead of the other cars, that's the sort of thing that I think McLaren have not outlawed, but definitely tried to step in on. I'm led to believe that, effectively they're going to review it all again after this weekend, which actually I think, one is the sort of thing I think they do every round, but specifically, say Lando Norris was to get taken out of the race and Max Verstappen wins, well then you go to the Singapore Grand Prix, it's really very hard for if that happens at any race, but obviously we're heading to Singapore next, it's very hard for Norris to win the title in those circumstances, so why would you put this extra pressure on Piastri? And he fronted up to it. I thought he answered everything very well. He didn't I tried to ask him, are you happy with the way this has been conducted? It all coming out in the media, Stella speaking to the BBC first rather than, I don't know, any team statement or a team press release or whatever. He didn't bite on that. He just sort of, said, look, I've been given an opportunity to win in a team. I've only been in a team 18 months. I'm happy to do what's best for the team. There are these specific circumstances, but also he said what's key was the point of the season. Earlier on, I don't think he really would have accepted it at all. Now he seems that is certainly, he's more accepting of it rather than outright sort of stating it. Other little things I learned, I think any updates that come to the McLaren from now on will automatically go on to Norris's car because he's further ahead in the championship. It's the logical thing. It's not even necessarily a team orders element. It just makes sense, right? But yeah, that took up a large part of the day. But obviously there was other news going on. Yeah. In fact, news going on before we even arrived in Baku. And this is obviously Adrian Newey joining Aston Martin. And you were in a press conference where Fernando Alonso was speaking. So what's he making of it all?
Well, obviously he's very excited first and foremost, as you can imagine. He finally gets the chance to work with Newey. I think Newey mentioned this during the launch, or his unveiling rather, that this could have happened in 2008 with Red Bull and it never ended up happening. Now he gets the chance to work with Fernando Alonso, kind of understand how he works as a driver, and they should form this hopefully kind of double act, because we'd like to see another team in the top end. Alonso doesn't think that there'll be too much 2025 involvement, but Cracker said, well, if he's got time and there's something that he sees in the 25 car that he has an
So
idea
just to
on.
be clear, it's not like he's going to be because that what I take from that is Alonso saying he's going to be ring fenced only on 26.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Basically, that's Alonso's assumption.
Right.
But obviously, 2025, Adrian's joining in March. But if there's something that he sees over the season where he has a clear idea of what to do, he might be able to drive that. He might be able to sort of test whatever structure that he puts in place, which is going to be really interesting because it's all sort of dialing everything up for 2026. And a few other drivers have had their say as well. So Max Verstappen has said, happy for him. He'd like to see him stay. But, when someone wants a new challenge, you don't, try and sort of stop them from doing it. You let them go and grow. And Aston Martin, very, very much looking forward to having him, one of F1's most revered aerodynamicists. And I think there's a few teams that would like him to solve a few problems, which is a nice segue onto Mercedes, having to roll back onto its flaws. Alex, you went to both of George's and Lewis's sessions. So what did they make of Mercedes' decisions? Can you kind of explain it a little bit?
Yeah, it's the most interesting thing really about Mercedes' season since it suddenly jumped forward and got back into getting stuck in at the front of the order. Those 3 wins out of 4 races pre-summer break, and since then, let's be honest, it's been pretty awful. I mean, it's different shades of gold, right? It's not as good as it was pre-summer break, but because everything's so close, at Zandvoort, frankly, they look nowhere. All those extra pit stops. We never got to see exactly how good the Merc was in Monza because of Russell's lap 1 mistake. But effectively, it's all boiling down to this flaw that they introduced at Spa, didn't race there and won there. So now the feeling is, well, we keep trying it, and they raced it in Zandvoort, didn't get the information that they needed, tried it in Monza, did do the test, but obviously Antonelli crashed Russell's car, so they lost a session's worth of data. And again, in both cases, with not all the information, they pressed on with it and had endured, as I said, 2 very disappointing races considering where they were before the summer break. So this weekend, not even trying it. It's not, my understanding is it's not going to be on the car at any point. Of course, that may change, but as things stand, as right now, it's, as Lewis Hamilton said, and you referenced, Jake, rolling back on what they were doing. So yeah, Hamilton, quite clear. My gut feeling, he says, is that, the reason why we haven't done so well is because of the upgrade.
Yeah, certainly. I think, and you're seeing this with a lot of teams, they're not necessarily getting the floor updates in the right window off the bat. And it's difficult because it's such a sort of sensitive part of the car. Every single track has different characteristics. But yeah, you're seeing a lot of teams rolling back and having to go back to the drawing board. So you kind of wonder if they're sort of hitting the peak with these flaws now, and whether they've reached a convergence point where they go, okay, if we add more, is it actually helping us or is it hurting the car? I think that's going to be something we look out for in the next few weeks, certainly.
You the Ferrari drivers, how are they feeling about this weekend?
They are confident, just sort of like generally on the season as well. And Carlos Sainz was quite interesting about this. Mentioned that the team, Monza aside, hasn't been performing in the sort of second, third season, the middle portion. And yet it's still, it's 39 points behind in the championship. Ferrari still believes it can pull off something that we haven't really considered, which is a Constructors' Championship. I don't know if you sort of think that it's possible for them, but they're still in the frame here.
Even Leclerc, he's not that far off back of Norris, and these 2 races are critical for the World Championship. I think Red Bull are in a weirdly extra strong position. They've got the points advantage, but it's just like, well, we are where we are. Everyone else has to catch us up, and that adds pressure elsewhere. So that could be telling, and Ferrari could well be the dark prancing horse, as it were.
So there's also a third Ferrari driver racing this weekend because Ollie Bearman's in for Kevin Magnussen, who is banned for this round after picking up his 12th penalty point in Monza. So you've got a little bit of time with Haas tomorrow. Tell us all about it.
Yeah. I mean, very lucky experience to be going and sitting in the back of the Haas garage and just being plugged in a little bit and listening to what they'll all be saying on their team radios for Bearman's first, it'll be just the FP1, but the first appearance of his debut race weekend. So yeah. Big things, on the horizon for him. He'll be working with Mark Slade, who currently is Kevin Magnussen's race engineer. Likely, I would imagine, is going to be Oliver Bearman's race engineer in 2025, just considering how things are shaping up at Haas. Also, little news, very minor bit of news. Frederic Vesti is Haas reserve driver this weekend. Obviously, long-time Formula 2 driver, Mercedes Junior. But basically, Haas have no reserve drivers because Pietro Fittipaldi is racing in IndyCar. All of Ferrari's reserve drivers are pretty much racing in WEC. And so Vesti is here, and he's also the reserve for Mercedes, obviously McLaren and Williams too. So I mean, what happens if there's a big shunt in qualifying and like 4 drivers unfortunately can't take part? I don't know what happens there, but certainly will make an interesting line to follow if that were to happen.
Well, it's a good thing that Haas has Vesti up its sleeve And you can hear all about Alex's experiences with Haas and FP1 in tomorrow's video, so catch us then. We'll see you then.